What's up guys, welcome back to the Raw Visuals YouTube channel. Today I'm very excited because we actually get to finally build another computer. Man, it makes me happy to build computers. I really don't know why. I don't know why I'm such a nerd with this stuff, but you know what? Maybe some of you guys can relate with me. It's just fun, okay? So yeah, last video we went through the parts and everything like that. I told you guys pretty much what my suggestions were if you guys are going to be building a PC for around the $550 range right now. Of course, I found like a random deal on my graphics card, but I also remember I gave you guys a couple options that you guys can go with if you guys are following along and building your own PC, so make sure you guys pay attention to stuff like that. But all in all, this PC, I'm very excited for it because, spoiler alert, I kind of already built it, but we're kind of gonna go back in time and I'm gonna show you how I built it because I already filmed everything, but I'm kind of recording the intro now because I forgot to. But you know, that's how things work because you guys could probably guess there's something behind me back there. Yeah, maybe I'll give you a little sneak peek. I'm just kidding, I'm not gonna give it away. Come on guys, I'm gonna ruin the suspense if I give it away, okay? So let's go ahead and roll the intro and we'll get right into how to build this PC. Let's go. Also, side note, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we passed 4K subscribers on the channel, so yeah. So you know what, if you guys aren't subscribed already, make sure you guys get subscribed and turn the notifications on, because you know what would be a great Christmas present to me from you guys is getting to 5K for Christmas. That'd be my, you know what, just give me that Christmas present. That'd be great, you know? I'll give you guys more content. You guys get me 5K subscribers before Christmas and everybody will be happy, all right? I'm just kidding. You don't have to if you don't want to, but honestly, would make me happy to see you guys do that. So let's go ahead and get on to the parts right now and start showing you guys exactly how I build a PC from start to finish. Here we go. Okay, now I'm sure a bunch of you are going to go ahead and start panicking because you got all these different parts and you don't know what to do with them, but don't worry about it. Just calm down. It's very simple. You're just gonna need a couple things to get started at first. First being a Phillips head screwdriver, preferably a magnetic tipped one. If you don't have a magnetic tip, I would suggest getting a magnetic tipped screwdriver because of all the different types of screws you're going to be using and all the small little cramped places you're going to be screwing things. It makes it a lot easier if you have a long magnetic tipped screwdriver. Going along with that, one thing that will also improve your quality of life while building a PC is a magnetic screw tray, and these can be had very cheaply at a hardware store, and they basically just help you keep your screws consolidated and keep them from going all over the desk while you're building. Another thing that is great to have handy is some kind of knife, and this is basically just for cutting cable ties when you're doing cable management. And that brings me to our last thing you really need, and that is some zip ties, and that is for tightening up your cables when you get to the end of your build. And believe it or not guys, that's really all you need besides having a nice clean workspace that is anti-static. And to help improve with that, go ahead and just make sure you're touching something that is metal every once in a while. That way you can discharge your static if you're standing on carpet or anything like that. But with all that out of the way, you can go ahead and start breaking into your motherboard box and taking out the components. And as you see right here, I am taking out the IO shield. Store that away for later because you're definitely going to need it. This is something that people forget about all the time when they're setting up their case. So make sure you don't lose that because you're going to need that. Next up is going to be your SATA cables. These help connect your hard drives. And then you also have a sheet that tells you which RAM configuration and how you should put your RAM sticks. So make sure you keep that aside as well. And then your motherboard manual that you're definitely going to need for a couple of these steps. So make sure you set that aside in a place that you can find it. And now with all your motherboard extras unboxed, we can go ahead and take the motherboard itself out of the box and then take it out of its anti-static bag. Go ahead and set that bag aside because you won't need it for now. And then go ahead and put the motherboard itself on top of the motherboard box because we're going to be able to work with this as our surface and build a Frankenstein type of computer to test our main components before we put them in the case. So now that we have the motherboard out of the box and on top of the box, we're going to go ahead and grab our Ryzen 5 2600 and we're going to take it out of its box, take the CPU out itself and the CPU cooler, and we're going to go ahead and install that CPU onto the motherboard, and then we're going to go ahead and install the CPU cooler on top of that. Now installing an AMD CPU into an AM4 socket is actually pretty simple. There's just a couple key things to take in mind, and that is just first that you have to lift up on this lever here to open the socket itself. Please take extra care with this socket. You don't want to get anything inside of it because it will cause it not to function. And the way that an AM4 socket works is that the CPU has pins on the bottom of it. Now, it's very important that you do not touch these pins or bend any, because if you do that, you're going to be in deep trouble. So please handle it with as much care as possible, especially when you're taking it out of the case like this. Make sure you use 2 hands, open up the case, and grab the sides of the CPU with your fingers, and be very careful when you're lifting it out. Just pull it out just like I'm doing here in the video, and you should not have to touch the pins at all, just like I'm showing you right here. See all those pins right there? Those are going to go into the socket. And now, before you go ahead and try to stick anything in the motherboard, you need to look at the CPU itself and locate a gold triangle in the side of the CPU there. And then you need to locate a triangle on the motherboard itself, and those 2 triangles need to match up, and that is the orientation that the CPU needs to be in to go in the motherboard. And now, with those 2 triangles located and the socket lever up, go ahead and place your Ryzen 5 2600 in the socket, just like so. You should not require any force to putting it in there. It should just drop right in the holes. And then once you're done, close the lever, and now your CPU is installed. Next is installing your CPU cooler. Now, normally this would require you to put some thermal paste on top of your CPU, but luckily AMD includes a box cooler with thermal paste already pre-installed. So for this application, we just need to grab our screwdriver and take off the pre-installed standoffs on the motherboard. They're just going to be those 4 screws around the CPU with those plastic looking things on them. So just go ahead and unscrew those, and there will be a back plate still behind it that has screw holes, so you can go ahead and install the CPU cooler on top of those screw holes in the orientation that best suits you. Now, this one, I'm going to go ahead and find a best location for our CPU cooler's fan cable, and then we're going to go ahead and install it that way. And you just want to make sure that you do screw it in a star pattern to keep that thermal paste applying evenly to the CPU. And once you do that, you're good to go. Oh, and don't worry about that cable sticking out that I have right there. We'll cable manage that later. Next, we move on to installing our RAM. So you need to go ahead and grab that piece of paper that was in the motherboard box that has the RAM stick diagram on it. And once you have that, go ahead and find the configuration that works best for the RAM that you bought. So now that we have a dual channel kit, it looks like we're going to be using slots A2 and B2 on the motherboard. Installing RAM is fairly simple, and since it only goes in one way, it's going to be very easy, and we already know the configuration we're going for. So all you got to do is line up the tick mark on the bottom of the module there with the tick mark on the motherboard itself, open the RAM slot and slot it in and push down until it clicks and locks in securely. Do this with both RAM sticks and make sure they're fully slotted in and in securely, and you're good to go. Next, we're going to go ahead and slot in our graphics card. Now, this is normally like the last thing you do in a build, but for the Frankenstein build, we need this to output video to see if our components are working correctly. So just slot it in your top PCI Express socket. Now, again, this can only go in one way, so you'll know when it happens. It'll just drop right in with a click. And we are now ready to grab our power supply and go ahead and wire everything up. Now, with our power supply out of the box, we're going to go ahead and grab a couple certain cables that we require to go ahead and wire this thing up. First being the CPU power cable that provides power to your CPU, then your 24-pin cable, and that is the biggest one on the power supply, and that is going to supply power to your entire motherboard. And lastly, we need a 6-pin PCIe cable to provide power to our graphics card. Starting with our 24-pin power cable, it's going to be on the far right side of your motherboard, and go ahead and slot this in. You'll see a notch on the top of it that'll connect up with a notch on the motherboard itself. This is going to require quite a bit of force because it is pretty snug at first. So go ahead and just push it in there, and you'll hear it click, and you'll see the clip go over top of the notch. Next is your 4+4 CPU power cable. Same thing as the 24-pin, just make sure you line up the clip with the notch and give it a little force and slot it in. Double check that this is definitely all the way in, because it is very common for a PC not to post because this cable is loose. Now, with all the important cables plugged in, make sure you actually plug in your power supply and connect it to an outlet on the wall. Then make sure you go ahead and actually turn your power supply on and use a flathead screwdriver
to make contact with the power buttons plus and minus contact that is on the bottom part of your motherboard. It is called the front panel headers. And if you don't know where to find those two contact points, just check out your motherboard manual and it will let you know where those two contact points are. And if everything goes right, you will see everything light up. If you have RGB like I do, you'll see fans spinning. As you can see right here, I actually forgot to connect my HDMI cable, but I ended up doing it after this and everything was working fine and I got a BIOS flash screen. When it comes up and says reboot and select proper boot device, that is what you want because you have not installed Windows yet. So everything is good to go and you can start working inside the case. Oh, and make sure you go ahead and unhook those cables that we hooked up because you're going to go ahead and reattach those when we have the motherboard inside the case. Speaking of the case, we can go ahead and start stripping down the case now and taking off the front and the rear panels. That way we can easily work inside of it. And sometimes these are held on by thumb screws. In this case, no pun intended, my front panel is actually a door that swings open, so it just lifts off by these latches that it has. And after you're done doing that, go ahead and locate your little goodie bag that each case comes with. It's either in a bag or a little box, but it usually comes with some kind of cable ties and the screws for the case and the extra standoffs that you're going to be securing your motherboard to inside the case. These are actually really important, so go ahead and take all of those screws and everything and put it in your magnetic tray if you have one, or just put it in a safe place so they don't get lost. All right, now remember that IO shield I told you guys to hold on to? Go ahead and grab that. You're going to go ahead and put that inside of your case in the very back part of it. Now be very careful with this because it is sharp and it only goes in one way perfectly. So make sure you line it up correctly with the way your motherboard is going to be put into the case. Now, speaking of the motherboard, we need to make sure that the case has the correct number of standoffs for your motherboard. This is very important because if there are too few standoffs or too many, it may cause a short in your motherboard, and again, your PC will not post. So make sure that you have the correct number of standoffs for your configuration. Ours right now in this is micro ATX. So again, if you're unsure about that, just check your motherboard manual or your case's manual, and you should be able to figure that out just fine. And now that we have the standoffs in, we can go ahead and place the motherboard in the case on top of the standoffs. Now this might require a little bit of, fidgeting around to try to get the actual IO lined up in the IO shield there in the back and get the actual motherboard lined up with the standoffs. But take your time, make sure everything's lined up, and then you can begin screwing down the motherboard. And now with the motherboard secure, we can go ahead and flip up the case and we can go start working on something else. And the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is actually install our hard drives so we can wire those up later. So this dark flash case that we're using actually has a pretty ingenious way of installing this hard drive cage. So on the bottom here, you just got a couple thumb screws that you undo, and then you can actually pull out this whole hard drive cage that has a spot for an SSD on the top and a mechanical hard drive on the bottom. So all we have to do is go ahead and put our SSD and hard drive on the cage and secure them down with screws, and then we can go ahead and put the toolless cage back in the case and we're good to go. And now that we have our hard drives in and secure, the next thing we need to do is go ahead and put our power supply in the bottom of our case, or the basement as it is usually called, especially in a case like this that has a shroud. Now this case has a filter on the bottom that can actually bring air in from the bottom, and the way I like to orient a power supply in a case like this is actually put the fan down. So it will draw air in from the bottom of the case into the power supply and cool the components. And then you just line it up with the holes on the back of the case and grab your included screws that came with the case and secure the power supply down. Screws also come with most power supplies as well. And now the next step is to go ahead and reconnect those main power cables that we did in the beginning of the video. If you need help on how to do that again, just watch the beginning of the video one more time. The only cable we're not going to do right this second again is the graphics card cable, because we're going to do that very last. And just keep in mind, make sure you fully secure down these cables, and the main thing here is just to find the best cable routing options for your case for these cables. And now the cables that we have not talked about yet are the system cables and the front panel connectors that came with the case. And now these ones, they're all kind of spread around the motherboard. So the first thing we're going to start with are the front panel connectors. Now some motherboards come with a little bracket that can actually connect them all and then plug it in all at once. But if you do not have this, just use your motherboard manual and find out where all these little cables go, and it will tell you the exact positioning of each one of those. And now these little connectors are a bit too small for me to show you one by one, but it is usually in this position on motherboards. And again, use your motherboard manual and you should be able to find where these go just fine. Next is your USB 3.0 front panel connectors. So this connector is very big and it usually has the color blue on it, so it's very easy to find. And on your motherboard, it's usually indicated by saying USB 3.0 front panel. And all you got to do is just press it in and it snaps right into place. Now you might be wondering why I haven't really brought up connecting case fans, and that is because the fans that I have in the video right now are not the ones that are going to be included in the build. I ended up having to switch these out, but pretty much connecting case fans is easy. Just plug it into the case fan header. Again, if you can't find where those are, check your motherboard manual and there's a diagram showing you where they all are. Next is your front panel USB connector. Now most modern motherboards have 2 of these, so I'm just going to go ahead and go with the right one and just go ahead and press it in and let it click and then route the cable. Next, usually all the way to the left side of the motherboard, is the HD audio connector. Now again, just go ahead and find the way the prongs line up and press in and let it click in and route the cable. Now with all those connectors connected, the next thing we need to do is go ahead and give some power and data cables to our hard drives. So included with your power supply are the SATA power cables. So there's only one way these go in your hard drive, so go ahead and make sure you get the little prong on the left side of it and plug it right into your SSD and your spinning hard drive. The best way you can route it with being able to get the cables out of the way once you go ahead and start to cable manage here. After that, go ahead and take your SATA cables that came with your motherboard and connect those into the right side of both your SSD and your mechanical hard drive. And then you're going to route that to your motherboard and connect it to your SATA connectors. And the only thing that you want to look out for is, because you're going to make your SSD your boot drive, you want that to be the drive 0 or 1, and then you want your spinning hard drive to come after that. So make that either 1 or 2. And now we're on to everybody's favorite part of the build, and that is installing the graphics card. So just like we did in the beginning of the video, use the top PCIe connector slot and go ahead and slot it right in there. It only goes in one way, as I said, and just push it in until you hear the click. And once it's in there, go ahead and secure it down with screws that you have. It didn't look like this case came with any thumb screws for it, so I just used some screws that I had left over. And the last thing you got to do is just go ahead and take your 6-pin PCIe power connector, connect it to your graphics card, make sure it's in there, and go ahead and cable manage that cable. And now last but very not least, with this big mess of wires you have hanging out the back of your computer, you need to go ahead and grab your cable ties and do some cable management to get that airflow going in your case and to make that thing look pretty. I was actually able to do pretty good with this case's cable management and got it looking very nice. And the last thing you need to do is just test it with the side panel. And if the side panel goes on without a bump on the side, you did an A+ job. And of course, that means we also have to put on our tempered glass panel on the other side. So be very careful with this because it is made of glass and it can scratch. And also you don't want to drop it and break it, but just go ahead and line it up best you can and make sure you get it back on its hinges if you're using this case. And any other cases, you usually just have to line it up and go ahead and put your thumb screws back in so it secures it. But at any rate, you're just going to go ahead and close it up. And the last thing we have to do before we reveal the build is, of course, do a bit of peel porn. And here is everybody's favorite sound for your listening pleasure. And the very last thing we do, if you've gotten this far, is to go ahead and turn on your power on the back of your power supply again and use your button on the front of your case and turn on your computer for the first time, showing all that awesome RGB if you're using RGB fans like I am, and seeing all your components work as they should.
Okay, so here we are, build done, successful. If you guys are following along with me, if you guys are using this as tips, I hope you guys are very successful in your build as well, and I hope you guys feel about as happy as I do when I see that motherboard splash screen come up after a build. Nothing better than seeing that. If you guys do end up getting a black screen or something like that, like I said, just check your video card, make sure it's plugged in the right slot or something like that. It's usually something very simple that's wrong with it, and then once you correct something like that, you'll get that awesome splash screen, and you guys will be jumping for joy because your new PC is ready to use. So I hope you guys found this helpful. Hope you found it educational. If you didn't even learn anything, if you guys just came here just to watch some PC porn, whatever, whatever you guys call it, then I hope you guys enjoyed at least watching a PC build, because I know I like those kind of videos. So if you guys enjoy this kind of content, please give it a like. I really enjoy seeing you guys do that. If you guys have any questions, comments, or anything like that, if you guys have any concerns about what I did, or if you guys do anything differently, leave it in the comment section below. Start a conversation about it. That's totally fine with me. No worries. And if you guys really enjoy my content, you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on so you can be notified when I put out my next video, because I'll be doing another one on this build, obviously. The next video is going to be installing all the software and benchmarking it in synthetic benchmarks and games to show you guys the performance you'll get with a PC from this price point with the different components that I decided to choose. And I think you guys will be really surprised, because it's actually pretty awesome. So I'm gonna get out of here because I got a ton of things to download on that computer right there, including the software for Windows, and I got to get testing this thing. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.